because y'all are going to get to see the screens and some of the other things live that the Teams experience won't capture. So I want to thank all of you for coming live. I know there's a lot of other things you could be doing right now, a lot of places you could be right now. Thank you for taking this time to see it. I think you're going to love it. I think it's going to be worth your while, and you're going to have a fantastic experience. So we'll just wait another minute or so. We're going to get the team stream going, and we'll start. All right? How was the food? Food? I want to thank student involvement, not student affairs, student involvement, right? Okay, I want to thank student involvement. Thank you so much, Freddie Cantu and Molly Duke and all the fantastic folks for giving us that wonderful meal. Thank you. So we'll start in just about 1 minute, okay? Thank you so much for joining us tonight. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Woodrow Wilson Wagner. It's my privilege to serve as the Director of Strategic Initiatives here at the University of Houston, Victoria, where I also have the pleasure of teaching many of you lovely people in speech classes and in political science classes. Thank you for taking this time, whether you're online, whether you're here to join us. I think tonight is going to be a fantastic concert experience that's not just about the music, but it's music with a message. And we're so blessed, we're so lucky to have two excellent musicians that are going to share a really cool story with us. And I hope by the time they finish their musical journey tonight, you walk away from this experience inspired, invigorated, educated, and ready to go tackle whatever situation you're going to tackle in life, whether it be here at UHB, whether it be at home, whether it be at work, wherever. So many people help make tonight's event happen. I want to especially thank our Student Involvement Office, led by Mr. Freddie Cantu. I want to thank Molly Duke. I want to thank Dr. Jay Lambert. I want to thank Doctors Joanne Olson and Danny White for all their support and all of their help bringing tonight happen. But most of all, I want to thank our students. There's a lot of things, students, you could be doing right now. And I think some of you are thinking, I could be doing a lot of things right now. But you decided to come to this event. And I think it's going to be worth your while. Thank you, students, for taking this time to come tonight. Without further ado, I think I've talked enough. I want to introduce our keynote speaker, our guest musician, author, educator, life changer, Mr. Simon Tam. Let's hear it for Simon Tam. I'm going to get out of the way and let Simon and Joe introduce themselves a little bit more, and then they'll start to tell their fantastic story.
Hey everybody, I'm Simon, this is Joe, and this is my story. Imagine it's 2004 and I'm in Portland, Oregon with my band, the very band that I actually dropped out of college to join. But in this moment, I'm about to quit. And that's because they forgot about what mattered the most, the music. So this song from that moment. 2 years and 100 things all like that is a demo and a beat up.
Why the hell did I drop out of school for this? 40 bucks and 40 fights. Still, our blood but never saw our name and light. I gave everything, but only got regrets. I'm sick of pleasing everyone. Gonna write new songs, gonna change our sound, gonna take a chance, and take a stand, gonna start again, gonna start a new band. I can't see it all so clearly, I want the world to stop and hear me. No apologies, I can feel the rhythm building, like the pulse my heart is beating. Sing the song I sing.
So, ever since I was a little kid, all I wanted to do was play music. My parents have these home videos of me where I grab my dad's acoustic guitar, jump up on the table, and just scream. That's what I thought rock stars did. I'll never forget looking at that television set and saying, Mom, that's gonna be me one day.
4 years old, I've had this dream built. So Rossi saves some photos of a magazine. I said, Mom, one day I'll be on it. For years I played till my fingers bleed, but that's no way to earn a PhD. If he only knew what that doubt did to me. I'm sick of pleasing everyone. I'm gonna storm the street, I'm gonna make some trouble, I'm gonna take a chance and take a stand. I'm gonna start again, I'm gonna start a new band. I can't see it all so clearly, I want the world to stop and hear me. No apologies, I can feel the rhythm building, like the pulse my heart is beating. Sing the song I sing. I know this has not been done. Our faces are hidden, our voices unspoken, but I'm not just anyone. Yeah, they'll know our names will have representation. The unheard will stand and rock on.
Now, here's the thing, if you dropped out of school to join a punk band, just like I did, well, the idea of starting yet another band, your parents probably wouldn't be wild about that either.
You think you're such a punk rock roller, Simon, you are getting older. Where's your dream? When you have a wife and baby and a big house in the city, it's called responsibility.
That's better than my mom.
He just spent like 3 weeks at his mom and with his mom in Taiwan, so I got her down pretty well, right?
Aspirational. I still believe in this rock and roll dream.
10 years from now, believe on the center stage will sing for our community. Maybe then you'll see what I was meant to be. Talk about responsibility. Don't care about the music, you're so full of greed. But should never take that dream away from me. I can't see it all so clearly. I want the world to stop and hear me. No apologies. I can feel the rhythm building, like the pulse my heart is beating. We'll sing the song I sing.
So, in like every Asian family, we got these aunties. There are these powerful women who are there to guide us on the path of the straight and narrow. We want to invite you tonight to join the fam. You are now one of my aunties, and all you gotta do is join my parents in admonishing me using the power of song by singing these few words. Simon, you are getting older.
Older.
So let's
Sing
try
along.
it.
Simon. guy. Imagine if your mom was telling you to do this. Simon, you are getting older. I can see it all so clearly. I want the world to stop and hear me. No apology. I can feel the rhythm building, like the bones my heart is beating. Sing the song I sing. 10 years from now, believe on the University of Houston, Victoria K. and Ron Auditorium stage, I sing for our community. Maybe then you'll see what I was meant to be. Oh yeah. We don't have two mics. We're doing one mic for multiple things.
So it's not exactly how the story goes, but you know, in the world of art, in the world of theater, we like to say things that are emotionally true. So here's how the story actually goes. So I grew up in San Diego, California in the 1980s, and back then we didn't have the same kinds of representation that we do today. I mean, this is decades before Crazy Rich Asians, Always Be My Maybe, or Fresh Off the Boat were killing it on theaters and TV screens. Back in the day, when I was growing up, the only Asian people that I saw on the movies were white actors who actually taped their eyes back and made mock Japanese accents, or characters that were overt stereotypical like Asian-esque characters like Long Dick Dong and 16 Candles. I mean, it was offensive, it was shallow, and it didn't represent us in like any kind of meaningful, like, human kind of way. And I think as a result of like this lack of nuance, this lack of showing us as, you know, complete human beings, I was bullied as a kid. Now there's a couple different incidences when I was growing up, but there's this one that always pops up in my memory, and I think it's the one that kind of shaped the rest of my life. It was in 7th grade, and back then we would take turns cleaning up the PE yard while everyone else would go and hit the showers. And on this particular day, it was my turn. I thought I was alone out there as I was picking up the basketballs and the volleyball nets and that sort of thing. But then I could feel myself being shoved to the ground. I look up and there's like 4 guys standing over me. But the thing that terrifies me the most is that they're grinning. They're enjoying this moment. And that's when it begins, just over and over and over again. They kick me in the stomach, they throw sand in my eyes, they hit me in the face, all while yelling 2 words again and again. Jap and gook. And I was terrified. I didn't really know what to do until something in me just snaps. I look at him and I said, I'm a chink. Like, that's how stupid you are. You can't even be a racist properly. And there was something about that they just stopped and they walked away. You see, I believe there's power in claiming an identity. There's power in saying, you don't get to define me, only I get to do that. And I think some part of that lesson carried over as I entered in high school. High school was where I met Kyle, and it's when I fell in love with punk rock. Joe, maybe you could demonstrate a little bit for these fine folks, like punk, what punk music's all about. You see, he's got this wide stance, sneer on the bass playing all downstrokes, typical punk fashion here. Now all you gotta do is put some words, some poetry to that attitude.
Well, I tumble out of bed and stumble to the kitchen for myself. A couple of ambitions, stretch and yawn and try to come to life. I'm in the shower and the blood starts pumping. Out on the street and the traffic starts jumping with folks like me on the job from 9 to 5.
Wait, hey, hang on a second. Joe, I said punk rock. That's Dolly Parton. She's like, that's country music. That's practically the opposite of punk. You know, punk.
Dolly Parton's got more punk in her perm than all those Ramones wannabes up there.
Oh, some of them are actually Ramones.
All the other non-Ramone people up there.
No, punk, you know, 3-chord songs, leather jackets, high top chucks, you know, punk music.
Pretty sure Dolly Parton has a leather jacket and high top chucks.
She's got like a fringe jacket or those weird string things.
Pretty punk rock.
It's all sparkly.
Also very punk rock to me.
No, look at these guys. Very different. There's no sparkle. There's a lack
Julian
of,
has a mug and got like rhinestones.
there's a lack of sparkle.
There's some sparkle on Julia right there. So yeah, and Dolly Parton wrote a song called 9 to 5.
Yeah.
It literally calls out the outdated work establishment. It literally calls out the man. So it is literally fighting what punk rock is fighting for. Also, you're like acting like she's country music, she's not punk rock. What about Johnny Cash? Pretty sure all those dudes up there will cream themselves for Johnny Cash. So there you go. Thesis 1.
I don't know about that. What I can tell you is that growing up, the idea of like being punk wasn't necessarily a good thing. I mean, this is like years before Hot Topic hit the mall anywhere near me. So the idea of me having this homemade wallet chain made out of safety pins, like nobody thought this was cool. Nobody except for Kyle. And who's Kyle? Kyle was my best friend. We were like inseparable then. And we also happened to be the only 2 punk kids in this entire school. Now one day, Kyle shows up and he's got hot pink hair spiked into Liberty spikes all over the top of his head. So of course I'm like, Kyle, you look so cool, that's so punk. Well, the other people at the school didn't feel the same way. All day long you could see people pointing their fingers, laughing, whispering under their breath. You could see teachers giving them dirty looks as he walked by. Now I was supposed to meet Kyle after school on this day, but I was running a bit behind. By the time I got there, a very familiar scene was unfolding before me. Kyle, now surrounded by like a dozen guys, all pushing him around, saying terrible things, saying things like, "What's wrong with you? How come you look like that? You queer or something?" At one point, one of them says, "How come your mom lets you walk out the door looking like that?" And so I jump in and say, "Hey, maybe it's because his mom's not stupid and ignorant like you. Maybe she doesn't judge people by what's on the outside, but by what's on the inside, because that's what counts." Now I thought this was an excellent answer. I thought this is true. They didn't take it that way. They instead turned to me and said, "Oh, you want some? You want some of this, Jackie? What are you gonna do, Jackie?" Over and over again, they called me Jackie, and I'm like, "Yo, I'm in classes with you guys. You know that's not my name." But that's what one of them says, it, Jackie Chan. And all I could think of was, I'm not Jackie Chan. The man is significantly older than me, obviously, and he's got this bulbous nose that's been busted from doing all these stunts. But more importantly, Jackie knows something that I don't. Martial arts. Like he could school all these guys in a minute. I took 1 week of karate camp with my cousins in 5th grade, and they only gave me this white belt with this yellow sticker on it out of pity. I didn't think it was gonna help me out here. But then I thought back on that 7th grade day. I thought, well, maybe. So I struck the one karate pose that I can remember, and they're like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, whoa. Hey, we're just messing with you. Simon, right?" It was the second time that claiming a stereotype helped me out in some kind of way. Now, I wish I could say that all of my experiences in school were like this, that ended up with a bit of bravery, some kind of witty remark. But the reality is that it almost always ended a different way, with me running away, trying to find a place to hide, and crying because I didn't want to get hit again. In 11th grade, I walked up to my dad. I said, "Dad, I'm ashamed of being Chinese." And I just broke my parents' hearts because they worked so hard for me and for my siblings. But I was just tired of getting killed out there. Now, fast forward a couple years, and I'm at UC Riverside on a full ride scholarship, double major, 6 months from graduating, when I get this call to drop everything, move across the country, and join a punk band. And it was something I decided to do. The problem was, I just didn't know a whole lot about my new future home.
In the Great Pacific Northwest, there's a place you ought to know. It's kind of like Seattle, but
it's way better than Seattle. We got a forest in the city, and bridges on top bridges. Rain or shine is a perfect time to pay Portland, Oregon a visit.
Oh, Portland. Doesn't it like, rain all the time there?
Not all the time. Get your April showers, May flowers, and then you get a couple of months of drought and forest fires and thunderstorms the rest of the year.
That sounds kind of like a lot.
You'll get used to it, or you won't, and then you're gonna need a special thing for the depression of yours. But I guarantee you it's way better weather than wherever you're from.
San Diego?
Do you like coffee?
Yeah.
We have the best around. Come on down to Stumptown, it's service with a frown. We got donuts shaped like cock and balls and vegan bacon maple bars. Jackpot record and Tillamook and Pound City of a million books. Here we like to keep it weird. Tattoo piercings, waxy beard. Naked bike rides Santa Claus, and no one ever waters their lawns. Recycling bins, co-op meetings, liberal college art degrees. Strip club out on every street, serving microbrews and charcuteries. Oh, Portland, all the hipsters think it's just like heaven in Portland. It's a lot like Brooklyn, but a lot less urban in Portland. So green, organic, and so pretty as Portland. It's America's whitest major city.
Wait, what?
I said it's America's whitest major city. Yeah, it's so white, and that's alright. It's got a lot of things that white people like. It's America's whitest major city.
Okay, I don't know about that.
It's a chance for a brand new start.
Well, what about that gentrification part?
We care about sustainability.
Yeah, but what about racial diversity?
Oh, everybody's in a band.
Or are they in the Ku Klux Klan?
At least there's no Confederate flag.
Or people who are Latin, Native, Asian, or Black?
It's a punk rock thing to do.
I guess it would be a badass move.
To change your path, you must approve.
To change my path, I gotta prove.
It's a punk rock thing to do.
Yeah, it is the punk rock thing to do.
Change your path, you must approve.
To change my path, I gotta prove.
Yeah, it's a punk rock thing to do. Change your path, you must approve. It's a punk rock thing to do. To change your path, I must approve. To Portland, so green, organic, and so pretty. It's Portland. It's America's whitest major city.
Go Blazers.
So there in America's whitest major city, I started missing home. I started missing hearing any of my first languages, the food of course, but also really like seeing anyone that looked like me. So I felt really, really lonely. And to deal with that loneliness, I started importing all these movies from Hong Kong, like VHS tapes off of eBay, mostly films involving this guy, because let's just face it, Jackie Chan is a straight up badass. And about this time period, some of my friends were saying, "Hey Simon, you like all these action movies. Have you ever watched Kill Bill?" And I was like, I missed it when I was in the theaters because I was out on tour, but I did buy it the day it came out. It's April 2004, and I'm sitting in my Portland apartment watching this, bright yellow DVD disc with these 3 black lines on it slide into that player. As it begins, there's a bunch of witty banter, there's a whole lot of violence, but more importantly, there is this one particular scene where this woman named Oren Ishii begins walking into this Japanese restaurant with her crazy 88s. It's the Yakuza, or the Asian mafia that she leads. Now to anybody else, this is just another trademark Quentin Tarantino scene. The music's playing, people are walking, you know something's gonna go down. then it just hits me. I realize there's something really different about that scene. And I figured out it's the first time I had ever seen an American produced film that showed Asians as cool, confident, and sexy. And I thought, wow, if Hollywood is this bad, the music industry's worse. With nearly 20 million Asian Americans in this country, I had never seen one on the cover of Rolling Stone, Pitchfork, Spin Magazine, or even getting any love from MTV back when they used to play music videos. So that night, I knew something needed to change. That night was the night when the idea for an Asian American band was born. Now, Band 101. If you want to have a name, if you want to have a band, you gotta have a name. So I started asking my friends in America's whitest major city, hey, what's something you think all Asian people have in common? Again and again, they would say slanted eyes. And like slanted eyes, like first of all, it ain't true. Like not all Asian people have slanted eyes. Second of all, we're not the only people on the planet with any kind of slant to our eyes. But you know, I had heard that stereotype too. It was one of the reasons why I got beat as a kid again and again. And I thought, I always associated my eyes with embarrassment, with shame, with fear. What if we could take it, flip it upside down, turn it into an idea that is one of empowerment instead? You know, take this thing, throw it back in the faces of our oppressors. I guess you could say that is a punk rock thing to do. It was such an incredible time as we started touring and playing our shows and getting our name out. Like, kids would write these letters saying, thank you. Thank you for giving me a reason to be proud of my heritage. I'll never forget the first time NPR's All Things Considered did a story about this. They did a story about this Asian American band that was touring while turning stereotypes upside down, all while building a geek army. They called it a geek army because we were playing anime conventions back then. And you know, it just became a part of what we were doing. But never in my life could I see these different parts of myself, the punk side of me doing music and the Asian American side of me like coming together as one. I mean, it was a dream come true, but that dream started to fall apart, as it oftentimes will in your life, when I started to be friends with an attorney. Spencer Trowbridge, IP attorney in Portland, Oregon, Still a good friend of mine to this day. He says, hey Simon, you've been touring, you're on the radio, you're all over television, you got all these articles about you. Have you ever thought about applying to register your band's name as a trademark? And I was like, sounds kind of expensive. But he says, no, it's only a few $100. And in like 6 months, the whole thing's gonna be over. It turned out a little different. March 2010, about a few months after we had this conversation, Spencer calls me up. He says, hey Simon, we got a problem. I go, well, what is it? He says, well, you know, the US Patent and Trademark Office rejected your application. And he says that the trademark office said the name of our band was disparaging to persons of Asian descent. And I'm like, wait, does disparaging mean what I think it means? Are they saying we're racist to Asian people? And he says, yeah, but and I'm like, I didn't even know there was a law against this. Like, what does it actually say? And he proceeds to read me what's known as Section 2A of the Lanham Act, which basically says you can't register trademarks if they're considered scandalous, immoral, or disparaging. In this case, they said it's because they said it's disparaging. But here's the thing. It's not just like what anyone considers to be offensive. They have to find what's called a substantial composite of a reference group. So in other words, Asian Americans overwhelmingly have to find this thing offensive for them to reject our trademark. And I was like, well, we just spent the last 2 years touring all around the country, you know, playing for some of the biggest Asian American festivals around. Like, who did they find who was offended? And that's when he says, nobody. Like, nobody? You just told me they have to find a whole lot of people. Now you're saying they didn't find anybody. Like, how could they even do this? And he says, well, they didn't find anybody, but, you know, they did quote urbandictionary.com, and they used photos of Miley Cyrus pulling her eyes back in a slant eye gesture. I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. But he assures me he's not. I'm like, you're telling me the kind of evidence that wouldn't even be acceptable in the junior high classroom is now being used by the federal government to deny us rights? He says, yeah, but I think they're wrong about that. I think if we could just show them how your community is supporting you, if we could just show them how Asian Americans feel about the issue and bring a bunch of evidence, then I think we can change their minds about it. It says, I think we can, and we absolutely should fight back.
Don't let the words dissuade. Don't let the text prevail. Don't let the weakness of others infect your health. Don't be their alibi. Don't feed that free mouth. If it's time, then it's now. Stand up tall and fight back rather than just sit back. Claw your way through the feedback. Don't you cotton back, don't you cotton back. Just react, heart and mind remain intact. Tooth and nail will not retract. Lead the pack, it's your time. It's your time now.
I want you to think about this one for a second. How would you prove that you're not offensive to yourself? Like, what kinds of evidence would you bring to the table to prove this? In our case, we turned to our community. We got executive directors of numerous nonprofits that said the slants don't disparage Asian identity, they celebrate it. On top of that, we got one of the most preeminent dictionary experts in the country who wrote this huge report showing the origin of the word, saying slant, even in the height of its use, wasn't considered all that offensive, but how more importantly, in the last few decades, Asian Americans were using it in this reappropriated, self-empowering kind of way. On top of that, we demonstrated other people using the term, like Slant Film Festival, which is the second biggest Asian American film festival at its time, the Slanted Kings of Comedy Tour, Asian American Comedy Tour, etc. All these people using it just fine. And on top of that, we did 2 independent national surveys that showed 92 to 98% of Asian Americans supported our use of the name. It was the biggest appeal in US history when it came to this law. Thousands and thousands of pages and thousands of people weighing in on this. We sent all this in, and the government came back and said, it's not good enough. It's not good enough because Urban Dictionary says so. And so we decided to change the conversation altogether. Instead of debating with them, like if we are offensive, we started to say, why? You know, like if we're offensive, no, why are you choosing us to be offensive? Because there were actually almost 800 applications for the term slant. I'm the only person in all of US history to be denied this right. So why this ban when you said slant shack, slant no rent, slanted records, all the others said that it was fine. And that's when the trademark office came back and they said, it's because y'all are just too Asian. You know, their exact words is how we were using the mark. In fact, they said, if you go to the slants.com, you'll see pictures of Asian people all over it. I'm like, yo, that's my face. Those are faces of my bandmates. But you see, in their minds, they sincerely thought that if people saw our faces, and then they saw the words the slants, they couldn't help but think of the more offensive term. So in other words, they were just like, y'all are just too Asian. But the reality of this is that it's a more convoluted way of saying anyone can register the slants as a trademark as long as they're not Asian. And you gotta imagine like what the rationale, like what were they thinking in all this? And so I decided to chart that out for you. It looks something like this, that the more Asian we become by adding Asian band members, Asian stuff like artwork, and photos of us on our website, the more we are offensive to ourselves somehow. And the problem is we didn't just happen to be a band with a couple of Asian guys in it. The problem was that our band is like super duper Asian. You know, we were all Asian American and Pacific Islander heritage. We wrote songs that are about our identity. We played at Asian American festivals. We played at anime conventions. Like you couldn't separate our identity from our name and for who we were because it was literally a part of who we were. But the government didn't care about that. You know, so we, even though we were like appealing, sending document after document, trying to express all that, they didn't care. They just didn't see it. It was just exhausting me. I mean, I was just getting worn out. And I think maybe the hardest part of this whole thing was that like in the band, I wasn't the lead singer. I wasn't singing the songs that I was writing. And in the court of law, I couldn't say anything for myself. Everything had to go through an attorney. They wrote the words and that were supposed to represent me. I always like needed to rely on somebody to speak for me, an advocate, if you will. And then I started thinking about the other people out there who were maybe too Asian or too whatever. And I thought, who was advocating for them?
It's 3 a.m. and I just play the same songs again. Different towns, familiar faces now and then. Driven 1,000 miles, but still have more to go. Fingers crossed these wheels will hold on till the next show. Days are nights, the quiet's too loud. Darkest light, so alone in this crowd. I'm at the mercy of an illusory shell, a faceless advocate who speaks when I can't for myself. Going through the motions until I've lost my voice. No more melodies, I'm just making noise. So how much longer can the troubled heart restrain every single echo, all of my mistakes? Deserts cold, broken vows, my grip won't hold all alone in this crowd. I'm at the mercy of an illusory shell, a faceless advocate when I can't fault myself. I'm at the mercy of.
So we started appealing again and again, saying you can't use somebody's race against them, that's wrong. And we lost every single round. And then one day we get to what's known as the Federal Circuit. It is one step below the Supreme Court. It is across the street from the White House even. And there, my attorney got injured and started responding to emails or phone calls. And so he was MIA. But his assistant, the junior associate, Joel, contacts me and says, you know, Simon, we hear your concerns and all the things you want to say. We're going to put that in there. But one thing that trademark attorneys don't get to do a lot is make constitutional arguments. So we're just going to throw a couple in here. The court's totally going to ignore them. No one cares about this. We're going to do it just to kind of hold the argument. In case this thing ever goes up, it totally won't. Just ignore it. But we're just going to slide this thing in here. And so they said that maybe this old law that's like 70 years old was violating my due process rights, and more importantly, that maybe it was violating my freedom of speech. We sent all this into the court, and they're like, you know, we don't actually care about any of these arguments. We don't care that they, use your Asian identity against you and said that you were, too Asian. What we do care about is the First Amendment, freedom of speech. And so we made those arguments, and 9 out of 12 federal judges struck the law down as unconstitutional, giving us our first taste of victory in this whole thing. And I thought the whole thing was going to be over, but then 6 months later, I still didn't have a trademark. In fact, I got something different in the mail. It was a notice that the US government, the US Patent and Trademark Office, along with their new BFFs, the Department of Justice, were now suing me. They were going to drag me here, the final boss stage of this whole legal adventure. Now, all along, I was feeling really frustrated because I was like, do we actually have any power in this country? I'm just a mere artist, trying to make songs, trying to make a difference for my community that feels relatively unseen. And that's when I realized we do. We can use art. We can use our art form as that. And so we decided to write an album and dedicate it to the US Patent and Trademark Office. We called it The Band Who Must Not Be Named. And we actually want to invite you to be a part of that tonight. So we're going to ask you to sing along. All you got to do, it's very easy, is to yell out the word no when we point at you. So let's just try it here. 1, 2, 3.
No.
I think we do a little better than that. 1, 2, 3.
No.
All right. See, Joe, they already know the song.
So easy. Easy song, right?
Sorry if I know it's too sharp. Sorry if our voice is too raw. The makeup and our weapon is censor our intelligence. Still our thoughts mean nothing at all. Sorry if you take offense. You made our rules and played pretend. No, you fear shame. Something so strange. Nothing's gonna get in our way. There's no room for your backwards feelings, backyard feelings. Never gonna settle, never gonna settle, and no, we won't remain silent.
No.
It's our defining moment. We sing from the heart. We sing from the heart, and
No.
we won't be complacent.
No.
It's a rock your own nation. We sing from the heart. We sing from the heart. That's pretty good. Sorry if you tried too hard. Take some power back for ours. The language of oppression will lose the education until the words can hurt us again. Sorry if you take offense. The silence will not make amends. The system's all wrong. It won't be long before the kids are singing our songs. There's no room for your backwards feelings. backyard dealers are never gonna settle, never gonna settle, and
No.
we won't remain silent.
No.
It's our defining moment. We sing from the heart. We sing from the heart.
No.
We won't be complacent.
No.
It's a rock and roll nation. We sing from the heart. We sing from the really quiet bass solo. One, two, three, four.
No.
We won't remain silent.
No.
It's our defining moment. We sing from the heart. We sing from the heart.
No.
We won't be complacent.
No.
It's a rock and roll nation. We sing from the heart. We sing from the a cappella style. Go.
No.
We won't remain silent.
No.
It's our defining moment. We sing from the heart.
We sing
We
from
sing
the
from the
heart.
heart.
No.
We won't be complacent.
No.
It's a rock and roll nation. We sing from the heart. We sing from the heart.
No.
A plus heart. Can that person get a?
Yes.
So much to the chagrin of my attorneys, we did play that song on the steps of the U.S. Supreme Court. And that's okay though, because it was a federal holiday when we released our album. You see, it was Martin Luther King Jr. Day, just days before we were due at the Supreme Court. And MLK Day is actually was really fun for us because they allowed us to go up the steps and sit down, look at Capitol Hill, and sing from our hearts. After we were done there, we actually took our guitars and walked to the MLK Memorial. Now this actually happens to be my favorite place in Washington, D.C., especially at night, because you got all these words from Dr. King carved into stone. They're lit up, and it feels like there's just something so stirring and inspiring about the moment. Now, by the time we get to this part of the story, I had actually already been in court fighting for my band's name for over 7 years. And now, I was actually the only original member of the band left. Like, you know, some band members got girlfriends and that can sometimes do things to a group. Others decided that, you know, spending almost a decade in the court of law was not what they imagined for a career in music. And so one by one, they all had their reasons, but they left. And even though they're supportive of the newer movement and what we were trying to do, my new band members just didn't have the same memories that I did back when we were young and idealistic, full of, you know, some kind of a vision of making change. And so that night, I actually took some time out for myself and just walked around and looked at each of these quotes from Dr. King and meditated on them. Now my eyes eventually fell upon my favorite quote of all, which was actually a Thomas Polar quote, and that Dr. King would oftentimes say. It says, "The moral arc of the universe is long, but it bends towards justice." And I remember looking at those words and saying, that's true, but that arc, it does not bend on its own. It requires patience, it requires persistence, and more importantly, it requires people who are willing to fight for what's right, to bend that arc just a little bit more. And as if it were some kind of sign from the universe, the night before we were due at the Supreme Court, we were actually at a Chinese restaurant being interviewed by this journalist. And at the end of the meal, they gave us fortune cookies. Now, I grew up in a Chinese restaurant. We never thought too much about fortune cookies. I thought that was kind of a gimmicky kind of thing. But that night, as I cracked open the cookie and I pulled out the slip of paper inside, I thought, maybe there's something to this after all. And so the next morning we get up and we go. You know, of course I don't get any sleep, but at 6 a.m. we find ourselves in front of this building, the Supreme Court. You know, It's got these huge Roman columns out in front, like it's preparing for gladiator-like combat. It actually has 4 words inscribed into the top. It says, equal justice under law. And I remember looking at those words and saying, I hope that's true today. I hope that's true because almost every other time that my community came before this court, before this governing body, we didn't get anything that looked like that. You see, it was the same U.S. branch of government that said it'd be okay to ban people from China, treating us more like rodents infecting a population than as human beings. It was the same group that said it would be okay to lock up American citizens, to put them into concentration camps, all because they had a little bit of Japanese ancestry. And this was done in the name of safety. So equal justice under law, I wasn't quite sure about that. But we went in anyway. We're guided in, and as we go into the room, I notice we're not sitting anywhere near my attorneys. You see, they're arguing from 2 tables up front under this raised dais where the justices are going to come out. Behind them are rows and rows of padded chairs. Behind them is this wooden wall. Behind that are these hard wooden pews. There, in the second row, center of those pews, that's where we were seated. Now you can imagine the scene, because as we're there and they open the doors, people start coming in. There are people who, some of them had been following my story for almost a decade, trademark geeks and free speech advocates and students and other folks, other Asian Americans who had been impacted by this law, all coming in. They see 4 Asian guys up in front in suits. And of course, you could feel the finger pointing, you could hear the whispers. And then someone finally says, "Are you in the band?" I'm like, "Yeah." And that's when someone behind me starts standing up. They start making a commotion, asking the court marshal, demanding that they come over. And they're like, "Hey, this is Tam of the case being argued before the court today. Doesn't he at least get to sit in the front row of this section?" And the court marshal looks at me and he says, "Well, I gotta check with the Solicitor General first." I'm like, "Oh, that's the dude we're arguing against today." But he leaves, and 10 minutes later he comes back to me, and then he says, "I'm sorry, Mr. Tam, but we're saving this seat in case someone important shows up today." And I'm like, "Yo, why you gotta cut me down like that?" But honestly, that's how I felt this entire journey. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because the gavel strikes, and then the men and women in black robes start filing in, and that's when it begins. Now, a lot of people ask me, what's it like? What's it like being in the Supreme Court, especially with your name on the docket? And I gotta say, it's really weird. Like, it's weird having, like, the highest ranking judges and the highest ranking attorneys in the entire country all using my name and using the name of my band. And I gotta be honest, I couldn't help but think, like, that's not me. The person they're talking about, that's not me. All I could think is, you don't know me. Because the person they were talking about was doing harm to the community. The person they were talking about was doing harm to people like my parents, my aunties, saying that we were racist towards Asian people. And all I could think of was, like, you don't know me. Like, you weren't there when we decided to name our band this, and why we were doing it, and how we were working with all these organizations across this country. You weren't there when we made the decision, like, to, for example, dedicate 100% of the profits from our second album to fund research as to why Asian American women experience cancer rates 8 times higher than anybody else. You definitely weren't there as I was talking to those other kids who were bullied like me, telling them not to take their own lives, that things would get better. So of course I'm like, you don't know me. You don't deserve to have my name or the name of my band in your mouth. But of course, I can't say anything. That's the irony of this moment, this whole situation. I am in America's highest court fighting for freedom of speech, and in that room, I can't say a damn thing. So how it feels is invisible. It feels insignificant. Like it didn't even matter if I showed up or not. Halfway through the arguments, there's this little voice that just breaks through everything.
Does it not count at all that everyone knows that the science is using this term not at all to disparage, but simply to describe, to take the sting out of the word.
I remember sitting there thinking, yo, I think I'm in love with a Supreme Court justice. Notorious RBG, she gets it. She knew that it did, we were training the venom, taking the sting from the term. And, and as she asked the government this question, doesn't it matter? Everyone knows the slants are Asian. The only thing they could say in response is, well, we found a lot of articles in the internet that suggested otherwise. And I was like, no, you're talking about urbandictionary.com. You're not talking about my people. But of course, I couldn't say anything. So they just moved on. 55 minutes passed and the whole thing's over. We're at the lockers gathering our things. And I'm like, I don't think they get it. And as we walk out the doors, past those giant columns, we start hitting those steps. I look out, and the plaza in front of the court, it's full of people, like hundreds and hundreds of people down there. And I was like, I don't think they get it. Like, court's in session. Like, there's no tours today. Does anyone understand what's happening around here? But as we walk down the steps, we're about halfway down when the crowd looks up. They see us. They begin breaking out in applause, cheering for us as we walk down. I'm like, I don't get it. I don't understand what's happening. And as we hit those final steps, these two Asian kids run up to me. Simon, our parents let us ditch school to be here today. And I was like, yo, what kind of Asian parents do you have? And they're like, no, you don't get it. We're freshmen in high school. For our whole lives, we heard about the one who was willing to fight for the dignity of our community, for us to decide what's right for ourselves. We wanted to come in here and support you and be in that room, but there was just too many people. We waited all night on that cold sidewalk. But they also told me that they wanted to let me know that they said, when we graduate high school, we're going to study public policy development in college. And when we finish there, we're going to run for office and change the system we've been fighting against for so long. And I remember thinking, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if we win or lose in that courtroom today, because we won what matters the most, in the hearts and the minds of the people who are actually affected by these laws. These kids understood far more than most lawyers that I have met in my life, that it's about a system. And it's about changing the systems that uphold this inequality. And so I walk over to the corner of this plaza where my lawyers were, and there were all these cameras and microphones and of all these journalists from all around the world who were gathered. And they were all waiting. And apparently, they were waiting for my attorneys to deliver some kind of statement. But here's the thing. I used this small little law firm out of Hackensack, New Jersey, and they had never even been to the court before. Like, we caught up taking selfies up in there. So they did not prepare a statement. But they turned to me and they said, Simon, do you want to say something? And I was like, absolutely. Because I wanted to say what, no one was willing to go on the record to say in that court of law. I got up on the microphone and I said, if the government truly cared about fighting racism while using the trademark office to do so, why didn't they begin by canceling the registrations of the KKK, of Stormfront, of actual hate groups? Why did they choose to wage this battle against an anti-racist ban? I said, maybe it's because they don't actually care. Maybe they want to use so-called bad language to distract us from bad policies. You see, I called it a bad policy because we were not the only people who were too Asian. Think about it. Who are the kinds of people that reappropriate language? Women, people of color, members of the LGBTQ community. Well, it turns out it all made us targets under this law. If any slur that you could think of in your head for any of these groups, they were all registered trademarks, except when they were members of those communities that were applying. We shone a big bright light on that. And the government didn't like that. So they tried to put me into ruin by suing me and dragging me through the court system for almost a decade. Well, the news didn't like that. They just wanted to hear from the attorneys. So almost nobody shared that message. But we weren't done yet. We spent the next 6 months touring across this country, trying to share our story on every stage possible, hoping that our story would reach the ears of the clerks at the Supreme Court. 6 months later, it's 7 a.m. and my phone is blown up. It's got over 700 missed notifications. So I'm like, I think something happened. I hop on Twitter to Oregon Public Broadcasting, OPB. You know, that was the NPR affiliate that broke the story of the Asian American band turning stereotypes upside down. They write in a single tweet, the Supreme Court rules in favor of the slants. And later that day, I found out that decision was unanimous.
Some days we take what we can get. Some days you'll want to do again. Some days best not regret. We make a lot of mistakes. Some we learn from and some just stay the same. We like watching the replays. The life goes on. We remember the worst days. We double down when we should walk away. We like betting on parlays. The life goes on. Don't wait. Don't wait. Some days we take what we can get. Some days you'll want to do again. Some days it's best to not regret. Some days we'll reach for what we want. Some days you're not the only one. Someday we'll win. The life goes on.
So June 19th, Juneteenth of all days is when that part of my story ended. What do you do after you win like a landmark decision at the Supreme Court? Well, in our case, we decided to call it quits and retire. I was just too tired. The miles were too long, too many years in this. The truth of the matter is that we didn't entirely retire. I mean, we did other stuff. Like, for example, I wrote this memoir. Joe and I, we composed a rock and roll opera based on the story. And we even released a new record last year, a vinyl record that we collaborated with dozens of artists across this country. So I guess it's a form of retirement, but we did stop touring. And, more importantly, we decided that we wanted to change our focus. And so we started the Slants Foundation, a nonprofit that empower young folks of color to combine arts and activism in their work. The funny thing is, like, throughout the story, you can hear me being obsessed with this idea of being punk rock, of wanting to do something. But the reality is that the Slants weren't punk. We played synth pop music. But we did fight the man. And we did win. We changed the law. We changed these systems. So I guess maybe we were punk in a way after all.
Working 9 to 5. What a way to make a living. We're just getting by. It's all taking and no giving. They just use your mind and never give you credit. It's enough to drive you crazy if you let it.
So we spend our days traveling the country now, telling our story, trying to tell people and inspire you to realize there's power in claiming an identity. There's power in the way we use our words. And more importantly, there's power in art, in the way that we can help shape our world. And Joe and I and other volunteers all across this country run the Slants Foundation to try and help people work at the intersection of arts and activism, of culture and civic engagement. And apparently Dolly Parton, it's very thin, right? It is.
You can't see it. It looks like a slur, actually. Sorry.
Oh my goodness. But this is this is our passion now, to tell those stories and to help lift up other voices. You know, for most of my life, I thought my vehicle for change was my music, but I started realizing helping other people find their song. Maybe that's what I was meant to do all along.
I can see it all so clearly. When the world just stopping in me. No apologies. I can feel the rhythm building, like the pulse my heart is beating. To sing the song I sing. 10 years from now, believe on the center stage we'll sing for our community. Maybe then you'll see what we were meant to be. Thank you.
All right. Oh, we can do better than that. Come on. Oh my goodness gracious. Simon Tam. Wow. I thought it was great the first time I saw this, even better the second. I'm a little choked up. I mean, what a great message. What a beautiful, beautiful message. And Joe, what a beautiful voice. Let's hear it for Joe. Wow. Now, we're going to let them take a breath, drink some water, but we do want to turn it over to you all and your questions, your comments, your thoughts, and we have some more prizes to give away too. We have a drawing. Did you get a ticket earlier? Some of you got a ticket? Was it a golden ticket? No, it was a red ticket. Okay. Drawing tickets. Are you looking at your ticket? You don't have tickets? Some people got a ticket, some people did. Okay, the ticket that ends in 837. Who's 837? Okay, no, Rudy. Rudy. Okay, 837, anybody? No? What are we gonna do? Is it you?
I have no idea. I left it in the car.
Oh, you left it in the car.
I know.
You know what? Let's just give prizes to everyone. Who didn't get one of these yet? Raise your hand if you didn't get one of these yet. Yeah, there you go. There is one for you, Randall, Rudy. Almost. Okay. Well, I don't want to start hurting people. Anybody who didn't get? Yeah, get something. God's sake. There you go. There's. What do we got? Flashlights? Are there any flashlights?
Watch out, they're metal.
Yeah, better not toss them.
Don't throw those.
I don't think we have a mask.
Yeah,
Who
we're being,
doesn't want a
we're being
mask?
punk rock, not metal.
Okay. All right, so we're gearing up for the Q&A. And Simon, do you mind answering a few questions? Is that okay? You got a voice still?
Yeah, feel free to ask anything and everything.
All right, so if you do have a question, I'm going to come to you. And before I do, we do have a few more of these bags. And I just want to randomly bring them to some fantastic people who are joining us. One of our great community leaders, Mr. Harley Fisk. Let's hear it for Harley Fisk. Community activist. You seriously need to watch city council speeches and county commissioner speeches. This gentleman gives some of the great speeches, definitely cares about this community. Thanks, Harley, for joining us so much. We've got faculty and staff here. John, thank you so much for coming. Let's give him a big hand. I don't know where we'd be without Mr. Freddie Cantu. Freddie Cantu. You can too, Freddie. I'm sure you never heard that. So those of you, we've got the book, and Simon is more than happy to sign that book. And you can also get a photo with Simon too if you'd like to have that. Thank you all so much for coming. Okay, let's open it up. Simon said anything and everything, so let's see what's on folks' mind. Just raise your hand and I'll come to you and ask away.
My question is, how long have y'all been doing shows like this, where you like go around and do the song and dance to tell your story?
So this version of storytelling and songs, just a couple years. A lot of it actually started. Like I used to do more traditional talks at law schools and this sort of thing, but I was invited to do a storytelling residency in 2019 actually it was supposed to begin in 2020, but then the pandemic happened and shut us down. And so during that time period, Joe and I would connect every Monday night, mostly because we wanted to write songs for an album. But then we thought, when I would do these presentations, like what if we incorporated more songs in? And so we started the Zoom version where I would tell a story and he would play a song and we would go back and forth. But then what you saw tonight, we kind of did about a year or two ago, because we were working on a musical theater show for a theater in Cincinnati, and we thought it would be just kind of fun to rewrite the whole thing and make it a little more entertaining. So that's I would say probably about 2 years for this.
Great question. Excellent. Who else has questions? Oh, we got hands. I want to say thank you to one of our great professors, Mr. Jake Schneider. Let's hear it for Jake. Thank you, Jake, for supporting us. Really appreciate it. Okay, who had a hand over here? Yes, sir.
You can hold it. What was the name of your foundation that helps with creatives?
So it's called the Slants Foundation. So basically the name of the band plus foundation. It wasn't my choice, actually. I didn't want to call it the Slants Foundation, but I was outvoted, and all the board members were like, we fought so hard for this name, you might as well use it. And it was co-founded with several other band members, including Joe.
And what do you guys specialize in?
So we really focus on helping artists who are working on incorporating like activism or some kind of community-driven project within their artwork. So for the last 2 years, we've been producing this television and radio show where we get to highlight the stories of artists all around the country who are doing that. And for about a year, we fund, we mentor, we coach these artists to write a song about a cause they care about. And we really encourage them to work with a local organization who's actually working on that issue. So often we find artists who are like maybe passionate about something. They might write a song about it, but they don't connect with folks who are actually passing legislation or who are working at the state or city level to impact people in a real way. And so we're trying to train folks to work in relationship with their community. And so that's a lot of the work that we've been doing of late. But we've done things like we've helped fund theater projects, film projects, dance, any number of things, especially for people who come from a community that might be traditionally marginalized.
Have you guys ever done clothing?
There was one project we partnered with this group called Rock Paper Radio, and they did kind of this intersection of we call it Asian X BLM, so of Asian and Black artists collaborating together, and they did a series of clothing and tote bags and fashion that would highlight like the kind of racial solidarity between those groups.
Thank you.
Sure.
Now, why did you say clothing? You have some ideas? You want to collab? Yeah. You going to talk to Simon after about some of your, you might have some collaborators. Good. All right, other questions? Yes, ma'am.
So you mentioned that your parents weren't too happy about you dropping out of college to join the band. How do they feel about it now after everything's played out?
I think they have mixed feelings. So on one hand, they said after many, many years that they're proud of me, but at the same time, they're like, they're for a long time, like, I mean, I would send them DVDs of us playing and touring and magazines and stuff, and they were like, people pay money for this, and I'm like, well, this is how I'm supporting myself and doing this. But I remember they would say things like, no one's gonna marry you if you're in this band. And but nowadays, I think they realize that it was a really big, important part of my life, and even recently, just like a couple weeks ago, I was in Taiwan, and we were visiting family, and my parents were there, and there were people who were coming up to me saying like, I saw you on television. You did this really big thing, and like I think it really shocked my parents that they didn't realize like how much of an impact it made, and so they're like, well, maybe it was important, or did something good after all. So, but they still tell me like not to travel so much, or to do what me and Joe do.
Did you ever go back to school and finish, or?
I did. Eventually, I had to change my degree because by then the course catalog was not friendly to my schedule. But I eventually went back and I got an MBA.
Oh, so that's a happy ending, right? So not only did he finish his undergrad, he got a graduate degree. Fantastic. Stay in school, everyone. Stay in school, please.
I wanted to be able to teach, and you got to have a grad degree to make that happen. And because I spent a lot of my time working with community organizations, I wanted to have a degree where I really specialized in communication, and and I also really love like entrepreneurship and puzzle solving. So it seemed to work out.
Wouldn't you like to be in Simon's class? Wow, I'd like to take that class. Excellent. All right, other questions or comments? Questions? Jake has a question.
Okay, I have three, but I'll be very quickly. When did you move to Portland? Because I was really into Portland bands in the mid '90s.
A little bit after that. So 2003, 2004 was when I moved there.
Okay. How did you pay for all your lawyer bills?
So in the beginning, I took a lot of side hustles, a lot of part-time jobs, and then they actually said that they would stop charging me billable hours, which is like the most expensive part, as long as I would cover the fees. I just didn't realize the higher you go, the more fees in our court system. So, like for example, sometimes I would get like a printing fee for like $15,000 because our courts only allow something called appellate printing, which is like a printer approved by the court, and they only want physical copies, and it has to be stapled in a certain way, so it's very, very expensive. And that's when I had to like, I kept trying to find other means of income. In fact, I had to quit being a full-time musician for a number of years to be able to like take like all these side jobs to do it. But yeah, I think that's one of the things that we don't realize, like how much it costs to fight. And because even at the end of the day, even though I won at the Supreme Court, it's not like they're like, we were wrong, here's a refund for all your money that you had to pay. They're just like, here's a piece of paper saying you can have a trademark now. It's, yeah.
That's a lot. My last question is, were you happy with the language that was given in the Supreme Court ruling? Do you think that actually is going to kind of change things further?
So our Supreme Court ruling was interesting in that it was like 4 different opinions, like it's separated to many, many different parts. I personally would have liked to see them spend more time addressing like how laws disproportionately impact folks, especially laws around expression, like around protesting, around language, and how that impacts people, especially from like lower economic classes. But they didn't say anything about that. But I think at the end of the day, no matter what decision it is, those things could be interpreted in other kinds of ways. So I would say I'm probably like 80% happy, 20% I wish something would come up a little differently.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Sure.
All right, who else? Questions, comments, suggestions? Simon's also taking suggestions.
We take constructive
Requests. You don't want Simon to sing more? Want Joe to sing? You're all taking requests? All right. Other questions? You guys? No? No good? Good. Well, Simon, I guess I'll close things out and just say, of course, thank you. You've got a lot of students here who are starting their journey, a lot of freshmen and sophomores especially, starting their journey, and they've got obstacles. Some of them, many of them, first generation college students, first person in their family to go to college. And there's all kind of pressure with that. We've got a lot of students in here that are not just students. They're working full-time jobs. They're working 40, 50 hours a week. A lot of students in here that are taking care of family members. A lot of students in here that are athletes. Raise your hand, athletes. We've got a lot of athletes. So I say all this to tell you that there were little nuggets in your message tonight that I think landed with every single person in this room. And not only students, but we have faculty, we have staff, we have community members. And what a privilege it was to be able to gather all these people together in this little old town called Victoria and hear this message. How blessed we are. So thank you for traveling all the way. You know, he was talking, he just kind of jet lagged. When did you get back from Taiwan?
A few days ago.
Okay, that was just a few days ago, right? So it's been an exhausting travel schedule, and we appreciate you working us in. Thank you so much. Any closing thoughts you would like to leave us with as we close tonight?
Yeah, you know, as somebody who was the first in my family to graduate from college, and didn't exactly do it the first time around, so I had to do it while working, while touring as a band member. In fact, many band members remember when I would haul like textbooks with me on tour, and I would have to like always carve out time. Like I wanted to hang out with them and party and do all this stuff at celebrating after a show, but I always had what I called the quiet room, which is the room that if I was in that room, I was studying and doing homework while everyone else could do whatever they wanted in the other room. So I know it's not always an easy journey, but one thing that I would really encourage you is that this part of your journey, absorb all you can, learn all you can, and more importantly, develop as many relationships with those around you that you can. Because your fellow peers, those are the future leaders that you're going to be working with. Your faculty members, the community members that you're here, they're here in your corner, advocating for you, fighting for you. Connect with them on LinkedIn, like email them, visit them in office hours, develop those relationships, because like that's really going to put you on a path where it'll allow you to live out your dreams and pursue the things you really care about. You know, it's one of the reasons why I actually went back into teaching, is because I saw how much the faculty and staff sacrificed for us as students, how much like our success meant to them. And so know that you got folks in your corner willing to do what it takes to make sure that you get to have a successful life. But thank you for having us and for hearing our message and for spending some time with us today.
One more time, let's hear it for Mr. Simon Tam. Let's hear it for Joe. Don't forget Joe. Ladies and gentlemen, if you did not get to sign in, I would ask, please, whether you're student, faculty, staff, or community member, please sign in so we can just get a sense of who's coming to these things. I know many of you are doing things that are in conjunction with your class for credit, so that's especially important to our faculty. So I'm just going to leave this. Anybody not sign it? If you didn't get a sign, anybody? Randall, did you get to sign? You're good. Okay, you guys, make sure you sign. And then guys, if y'all will just leave it in the back so people can sign that. If you did not feel like you got enough free gifts, there are still some things left. So as you're leaving, I've got a box of some things. Also, those of you with books, if you would like Mr. Simon Tam to sign that book and or take a lovely photo, he is willing to do that. So if you'd like to come down and just greet Simon and wish him well and greet Joe. But any other questions or comments before we end things tonight? Well, thank you for spending this time. Again, there's a lot of things you could be doing right now, but I think we're all grateful for you spending this time. Thank you, Mr. Freddie Cantu. Thank you, everybody who helped put this together. I thank President Bob Glenn for allowing us to do fantastic events like this, and all the faculty and staff that are willing to help us out with this. Please look out for more events. We'll be doing more of this stuff in the future. Thank you so much. Be safe tonight. Take care. God bless. All right. You can clap. You can clap. It's a clap. So If you want some more free gifts, I've got some free gifts. And if you want to get books signed, take photos, some free gifts. Anybody want anything else? Just gonna think you got everything? Okay, there's some masks. You don't want a mask. Who wants a mask? You put this on. Okay, there's a few more free gifts. You could probably take a gift for a family member and wrap it up for Christmas. They're not going to know. I won't tell them. Take a few. Put them in a stocking. Wrap it up for their birthday, right? There's nothing like Post-its for your birthday, right?
You want to talk in the microphone, Gene?
You want to talk in the microphone?
You already heard me talk in a microphone, Gene.
Okay.
All right, is that all you're gonna say? Why don't you give it back to Woodrow?
That's the extent of your message. You didn't want to, okay.
Well, why didn't you, instead of blowing in it, why didn't you actually speak?
Those of you on Teams, thank you so much for joining us. Have a pleasant evening. We'll hopefully see you soon.